All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are going to explore one of the biggest questions there is, but we're looking at an answer that goes back way, way farther than you might think. We're talking long before humans were even a thing.
I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about it? Is our sense of right and wrong something we learn from our parents, from religion, or is there something deeper going on? Well, the teaching we're exploring today suggests the answer isn't on Earth at all. It's out there, in the cosmos.
You heard that correctly. To really understand our own morality, this teaching says we have to rewind the clock a lot. Forget ancient civilizations, forget the dinosaurs. We're going back to a time when the Earth was a completely different world. So, let's get started.
Okay, so our story actually begins before Earth was even the main stage. We're starting in a different part of the solar system, where the initial blueprint for humanity was first dreamed up. Just take a look at this timeline. The scale here is kind of mind-blowing, right? So according to this narrative, the whole human project didn't even start here. It started on Venus. It was only 600 million years ago that the focus shifted to Earth, and that was followed by two really critical moments: the arrival of a being named Alpha, and then much later, another named Elohim. This is our roadmap for the whole story.
So, you might be wondering who's the mastermind behind this grand plan. This teaching explains that the supreme spiritual being in charge of Earth goes by the name El Cantare, and it translates to something like the light of Earth or God of Earth. This is the central consciousness, the director of this whole cosmic play.
And that brings us to the first major act of the play: the arrival of the very first divine being on our planet, a creator figure known simply as Alpha.
I mean, just let that number sink in. 330 million years ago. At this point, Alcantare sends a piece of their own consciousness, their own soul, down to Earth in a physical body. And this first incarnation was called Alpha, and his mission was all about one thing: creation.
So, what was Alpha's job exactly? Well, it was all about building something new and full of promise. His main goal was to actually design the physical bodies that human souls would eventually inhabit. But it was bigger than that. To kind of jumpstart evolution, he invited advanced souls from other planets to come and coexist on Earth. It was an era of pure hope and construction. But, even cosmic plans have to adapt. After millions of years, the challenges facing humanity were changing, and a new problem required a new kind of divine guide. So, enter Elohim. And you can see the difference right here. It's a total shift in strategy. If you think of Alpha as the great artist, the architect of hope, well, Elohim was the great lawgiver. The mission wasn't about creating the world anymore, it was about organizing it. And starting 150 million years ago, his whole purpose was to introduce the very concepts of good and evil. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. According to the source material, that name, Elohim, isn't just pulled out of thin air. It points out that this name actually appears in some of our oldest texts, like the Old Testament, and that it's even used in prayer by some Muslims. This is presented as a kind of footprint, a sign of this being's influence on us through the ages. Okay, so that begs the question, right? Why the sudden need for a lawgiver? I mean, what happened to that world of hope that Alpha created? Well, to put it simply, people started getting a little too caught up in being, well, people. The core of the problem was this: people got lost. They became so focused on their physical lives, their power, their possessions, that they forgot why their souls were here in the first place. And this really dangerous idea started to take root: the idea that your status on Earth could somehow determine your status in the spirit world. And does any of this sound familiar? People began to judge themselves and each other based on things like social class, how much stuff they had, the color of their skin, and their gender. These purely physical, temporary things started to completely warp their spiritual reality. And this confusion wasn't just an abstract idea. It had real, tangible consequences in the afterlife. It wasn't quite hell as we might think of it yet, but it was the start. Souls who had huge egos on Earth would gather on these spiritual hills, literally looking down on those they considered beneath them, who were forced to live in dark caves. A stark division was forming. So with this spiritual crisis brewing, the stage was set. Humanity was losing its way, and it was time for a major divine intervention to get things back on track. Elohim's mission was simple, but absolutely crucial. He was there to draw a line in the sand, to say, look, this is good, this is evil, this is the path back to your true spiritual nature.
It was about giving humanity a compass again, a foundational law to guide them.
But here's the thing. When you clearly define good, you also, by default, clearly define its opposite. And this leads us to the final and maybe the most dramatic part of this origin story, the actual, formal creation of hell and the rise of its king.
Then we get to this moment, 120 million years ago. According to this teaching, this is when evil went from being just a bad habit to being a conscious, organized force in the universe. And the story behind it, well, it's a classic tale of pride and rebellion. It starts with a powerful archangel named Luciel, who became totally consumed with jealousy and believed he was just as great as God. So he challenged the divine order, sparking a cosmic civil war. But he was defeated in a massive battle by his own twin brother, the archangel Michael, and he was cast out. After his fall, he took on a new name, Lucifer, and he became the king of the newly created realm of hell.
So who ends up in this new kingdom? According to this teaching, the high-ranking demons who serve Lucifer are actually the souls of really influential humans who led masses of people astray on Earth. Think about corrupt tyrants and kings, religious figures who twisted faith for their own power, or thinkers who guided entire cultures down a dark path.
And that brings this entire epic story, stretching across hundreds of millions of years, right back to us, right here, right now. This teaching lays out a moral standard that it says was set in deep cosmic time. So the final question it leaves us with is a really personal one. If this ancient law of good and evil is real, how are we doing?